I'm Violet Berlin and this is Gamepad, about as far away as you can get from reality TV. Coming up in today's show, big fat worms, I'm serious, and big fat tricks. Ow! Ouch! Spare yourself the bumps and bruises by putting your image in a skateboarding game. Look at her face. That's me! And it could be you. And did you know that playing big man shooty games like this can help you perform astounding memory tricks like this?
3 of hearts, 10 of diamonds, 7 of clubs.
An 8-time world memory champion reveals all. And how to score goals. Most of the time.
It's not going to let you score every time, but it's certainly going to give you a very good chance.
Isn't it marvellous, the kind of things they do with computer graphics these days? That's the kind of thing you hear people saying. Perhaps you've even said it yourself. But do you really know quite how clever graphics cards are? Don't worry, Gamepad will tell you. Look, a funny ogre. No, sorry, I'll do it properly. The thing to notice here is the real-time interactive rendering. In other words, the computer is performing all its calculations to create this sequence on the hoof. Ah, that's a pretty fairy. Well, that's what most people would say. But a graphics geek is thinking, whoa, look at the pixel shaders on that. He would, of course, be eyeing up her wings. And the way some light goes through them or reflects according to the colours and textures, which the computer is, again, creating on the fly. From fairy to fiery. Now, don't be dazzled here too much by the flame and smoke effects. I mean the volumetric texturing, of course. Sure, it's very clever, but equally impressive is this fiery fella's thong. No, I don't mean his underwear. The thong I'm talking about is the true Blinn Thong shader, a technique the graphics card uses to calculate the exact amounts of light for each individual pixel on his skin. When you consider how many light sources, textures and colours there are here, creating realistic light and shadow in this scene has taken up all the cleverness, leaving none for the fiery fella himself. Now watch this cool old truck gradually show the effects of decades of neglect. The computer's graphics card carries texture data for the paint, chrome and wood, and rather than employing hundreds of artists to draw this gradual decay frame by frame, the computer just needs to know how much you want the card to age, and it will work out how everything should rust and fall apart. Yep, graphic cards these days are pretty clever, and you can get no more graphic demonstration than this. In the 1990s, when all games were going 3D, the game Worms remained staunchly 2D. It was old-fashioned in other ways as well. You took turns to choose a worm, choose a weapon, and then let fly. Well, now it's the 21st century, and Worms has, at last, gone 3D. We spoke to the creative director of the aptly titled Worms 3D, and after all these years, finally got to ask, why Worms?
It always has been Worms, really. We never really, once we got the idea of worms in his head, that's all it has been. People in the past have suggested slugs and snails and things like this, but to be honest, we're not really interested in any of those sort of shell things and slimy creatures. Worms is where it's at.
Hey, check this out!
The good thing about worms for us, that they were asexual, so everybody could relate to them almost. And there was a lot of in-jokes we could come up with about worms and stuff. But the thing about worms as well is that it allows people to put their personality on the game and name them and all the rest of it. What we sought to do, really, moving to 3D, was actually to recreate the game that everybody knew and loved from 2D and put it in 3D and not break it. That was the first thing we wanted to do, was really establish the game again. If anything, the more sort of mass market it's become, we've had to tone down the sort of undercurrent of black humour we try and sneak into there every time. Jewish rabbi had to go, and we also had some of the weapons had to go. We had a Bible weapon, and also we had a friendly fire weapon. You know, I mean, but what can you do?
Dude, you gotta make a move.
In terms of inspiration, we don't really look within the real world. I mean, we've got 70 people bouncing around our office who are absolutely off their heads.
You don't say! So now they've survived the transformation to 3D.
Look to the back.
Where next for the little hermaphrodite lads, lasses? Oh, you know what I mean.
Well, we were planning on getting the worms to do a bus tour of Wrexham.
Gotta make a move.
Other than that, space maybe, or Nicaragua is appealing this time of year.
Gamepad.
10 years ago, if anyone had heard you talk about tackling half-pipes or grinding rails, they'd have assumed you were in for a spot of home maintenance. Well, one man and his board changed all that, and now the undisputed king of the skate park returns in Tony Hawk's Underground. Previous Tony Hawk's games have let you play as a pro skater, either Tony himself or other boarders with a low-slung crotch line. But the star of this sequel is you. Well, me here actually, looking well dodgy. Happily, my second attempt at face mapping worked out much better. With the PS2 version, if you email a photo of yourself to a special address, you'll be sent a code. Get online, input the code, and your face is suddenly in the game. All you have to do now is add those full body tattoos you always wanted. And you're ready to go. You know, there really is nothing like the moment you see yourself on that skateboard for the first time, pulling off chains and combos of moves and tricks better than Tony himself. Oh, that's better, back on the board. I'm staying there if I can help it. Actually, it is possible to get off and on your board to perform stunts. Gnarly! Whatever that means. As it's the 5th game in the series, the developers Neversoft have had time to polish their system of pulling off tricks to perfection. Pull off a few in a row and you don't just look clever, you know you're clever, whether you know what gnarly means or not. Five games on and going strong, when it comes to skateboarding, there's still no fly.
My name's Charlotte, and when I'm not watching Gamepad, I'm caring for the needs of others. If you'd just like to bend over, Miss Clark.
Still to come on Gamepad, how video games can help your memory and how to score the perfect goal. But before all that, grab your Wensleydale. It's game on. Why Why else would you grab your Wensleydale except in honour of Wallace and Gromit? In their video game debut, the heroic pair, well, mainly the dog, as you can see, need to rescue zoo animals. But can you tell me what animal Gromit is rescuing here? From the cage, swinging down below.
Some objects can be moved if you push them.
Find out if you're right after the break. Look, there, quick!
Get up to speed and... broadband internet.
Welcome back to Gamepad. Before the break, I asked you to spot the type of animal being freed from his cage by the ever-helpful Gromit here. Well, now we're close up, you can see for yourself.
Ha ha ha. Nice going, Gromit.
Did you know that every year they hold a World Memory Championship? Yeah, I forgot too. Well, recently I met a World Memory Champion who's won the title 8 times by doing things like this.
Okay.
Okay. So now you're going to tell me what my cards are.
I'm going to try and tell you what they are, okay?
If you present him with a pack of shuffled
So it
cards,
starts off
he
with
can view
the
them through
four
once
spades.
and then instantly
All right,
recall the
yeah.
order they were in the
King of
pack.
spades, then the ace of spades.
We're not just talking
three
one
of
pack
hearts,
of cards.
10 of diamonds,
Dominic O'Brien can
7 of
recite the
clubs,
order of
the
54
nine of clubs,
entire
8 of
decks of
hearts,
playing cards from memory.
the
54 decks that
three
have
of
all
clubs,
been shuffled together.
5 of hearts, the 2 of clubs.
So how does he do it? Well, funnily enough, it's all down to video games. He combines a love of shoot-'em-ups with more traditional ways of remembering.
The way I remember things is to use a journey, a familiar journey. So, for example, let's suppose you want to remember a shopping list. Let's just take 3 items, bread, milk and cheese. You're on your way home from work, you get off at the station, so you imagine a loaf of bread at the entrance to the station. You go past the cemetery, so at the entrance there you can imagine a big bottle of milk. And then finally there's the post office that you pass, that's the next stage, and you can imagine some cheese in there. Just think back to the journey, the station, there's a loaf of bread, the cemetery, milk, and the post office, cheese. That's how it works. The journey preserves the order of the information. When I first got my computer back in 1995, and on it there was a game of Doom, and I found that there was an editor on there and I could design my own levels there. And I thought it was fascinating, and this is one of my levels that I designed. And I found that these were just as good, these journeys around these levels, for remembering information. This is how I memorize cards. First of all, you have to learn the language. Every card to me is a person, like the Queen of Clubs is Madonna, and the 7 of Diamonds is James Bond. The way I can remember them in sequence is by putting them along a journey. So I imagine meeting, for instance, Madonna standing on this top of the ledge there, and then over there we've got James Bond firing at me. So I keep going through the journey and imagining seeing each person at the various stages of the journey. Then all I have to do is play back the game in my head. Then I came across Unreal Tournament, and I got hold of this Unreal Tournament is a shoot-'em-up game, 3D, and I got hold of the editing facilities called Editor 2, Unreal 2 Editor, and I found I could do all sorts of things with it. Now this is the layout of our house. Caroline and I live here. And that was Caroline we just passed, and now we're going past my office. Now we're just going into the bathroom loo. There's the bath. You can see the water shimmering away there. And I find that you've got almost gritty reality there. It's that much more, has more impact on you, and you can do so many more things with it. Of course, I put enemies in there because I like to have a little shoot 'em up, and I like to have a game. Of course, the experiences gather in my memory as well. So when I come to a moat and I'm having a battle with a monster, when I'm in the World Memory Championships, I think, oh yes, I did have an interesting incident here. I think I got stabbed in the back or whatever. And strangely enough, this helps me to remember other information. Memory is all about association. Is gaming good for you? I would definitely say yes. Maybe it's an excuse that I spend all these hours playing shoot-'em-up games, but I think it excites the imagination, the creative side. And of course, if you're using your fingers as well on the keyboard as well, you're accessing both sides of the brain. So yes, gaming is good for you, good for your memory. And then we have the 9 of hearts, King of diamonds, 2 of spades, ace of clubs, 8 of diamonds.
You heard him. Gaming's good for you. Don't forget it. Now I'm hoping this journey down a long white corridor will help you remember just one thing.
Bravo.co.uk/gamepad.
A platformer is a game where a colourful character jumps from platform to platform, all bright and cheerful and nice, right? Well, wrong actually. The latest platformers all feature characters with a dark side. Here's Gamepad's top 3 least cheerful platform games. At number 3, Voodoo Vince. Vince is a doll, but not of the cuddly cute variety. He's a voodoo doll.
Oh, come on. At least give me a good race.
So no, not very cheerful at all. But even less happy joy is the way he fights his more resistant enemies. To inflict pain, poor old Vince has to injure himself, so he's always on the lookout for new hazards. Here comes one now. Ouch! At number 2 in our anti-cheerfulness platform game chart, it's Wario, the maniacal black sheep of the happy, clappy Nintendo family. In Wario World, the tubby, grubby troublemaker really throws his weight around, grabbing, smashing, and pulverising into oblivion. Mario's evil nemesis is great fun to control, and despite that big grin, he's really not very cheerful at all. Standing sulkily at the top of our chart of surly platformers, it's Jak 2 Renegade. This morose sequel to the upbeat adventure Jak and Daxter is rather dour because our hero suffered 2 years of imprisonment and torture, leaving him somewhat hardcore. Roaming the gloomy cityscape, hell-bent on revenge, Jak has grown into this lean, mean killing machine with not 1 ounce of remorse, which puts the miserable git at number 1 in this chart.
When I'm not watching Gamepad, I'm a tattooist and I do body pressing.
Football, they say, is about finding the space to express yourself, creating an opportunity, and long, flowing balls. That's funny, I thought it was about scoring goals. As Tim Clark of official PlayStation 2 magazine explains in today's Crash Course.
Hello, I'm here to talk you through how to score some of the trickier goals on Pro Evolution Soccer 2 for PlayStation 2. This is, of course, the most beautiful version of the beautiful game. So the best way to score a header is, here you can see, obviously you need to use your winger, so you just push it out wide like this. Here we've got Sylvain Wiltord, he picks it up. And as you're running directly straight towards the byline, you want to be charging up the cross button. And just here, he releases it as the ball's back at his feet. And the temptation here is to use the direction buttons as the ball comes in, but take your thumb off that. Just tap square, don't jab at it, just tap square as he receives the ball and bosh straight into the back of the net. Keeper's got no chance. It's not going to let you score every time, but it's certainly going to give you a very good chance. So that's how you nod one in with your head, but the trickiest goals for anyone to score in Pro Evo 2 are really the free kicks. Let's take a look at one now. Here we've got Seba Veron stepping up against the England wall, and the main thing to do is aim for the shortest player in the wall. There you go, use about 3/4 power, and as it clears the wall, hit down for all your worth, because that should make the ball dip. Into top right-hand corner, beautiful seam beating all ends up. Superb stuff. I can't guarantee you'll score every time in Pro Evo 2 because it's an absolute art form, it's something to be mastered. With my tips, it should be a bit easier for you.
And now you won't have any more excuses for being like me, rubbish at football. Next time on Gamepad, we go to the dogs.
Oh, come on, give me a break.
OK, then the dogs come to us in the game which lets you live a dog's life. Because that's what it's called. Gamepad has a sniff around. And comic book legend Todd McFarlane tells Gamepad about putting his characters into games.
Fight!
Plus, the mini guide to stunt driving.
And that's how to beat the subway section of The Italian Job.
I'm Violet Berlin, and you've been watching Gamepad. Did you know there's no single English word for the back of the knees? I'll leave you with that thought and this eye candy. It's from the modern sequel to the classic Spy Hunter, offering you the chance to once more get behind the wheel of a super-duper terrain-adaptive vehicle. It's Spy Hunter 2. See ya!